Hello everyone, got 4 dirty jokes for you today. So a young bride was nervous about her wedding night. She had never been intimate with a man before, and she didn't know what to expect. As they lay in bed together, she turned to her new husband and said, "Honey, can you explain how this works? I want to make sure I do everything right." Her husband smiled reassuringly and said, "Of course, sweetheart. It's simple. We'll call your private area prison and my private area prisoner. All you need to do is put the prisoner in the prison." The bride nodded, feeling a bit more at ease. They began to make love, and the husband was pleased with how things were going. But after a few minutes, the bride giggled and said, "Honey, the prisoner seems to have escaped." Her husband smiled and rolled over. "Well, then we'll just have to re-imprison him," he said, and they continued on. After a little while, the bride spoke up again. "Honey, the prisoner got out again." Her husband wasn't worried, though. He was a seasoned veteran at this point. "No problem," he said, and they made love once more. But a few minutes later, the bride spoke up again. "Honey, the prisoner got out again." This time, the husband was starting to get annoyed. "Hey," he said, rolling over, "it's not a life sentence, you know." So I had a housewarming party last night. The next morning, I came downstairs to see someone I wasn't well acquainted with but a friend of a friend lying on the kitchen floor. I told him, "Time to go home, mate, up you get." I helped pick him up, but he immediately fell back down again. "All right, you're obviously still drunk. Where do you live so I can drive you home?" 24 Longhouse Avenue, came the mumbled reply from the man. So I picked him up again to help him get to my car, but every single time I let go of him to stand by himself, he immediately fell back on the floor in a heap. After the same incident occurring 10 times, I finally got him in the car and to the address he mentioned. Once out of the car and falling back down 3 more times, I managed to drag him to the front door and rang the doorbell. His wife answered, and I explained that her husband had a bit too much to drink last night. "That's true, my husband does like to get pissed," said the wife. "But where's his wheelchair?" So a man walked into his office with 2 black eyes. His co-workers were concerned and asked him what had happened. The man hesitated before finally confessing, "Well, it all started when I had to run some errands yesterday." He had just finished up at the grocery store and was feeling good about his efficient shopping when he noticed that the button on the fly of his pants had come loose. He tried to fix it himself, but his attempts only made it worse. Feeling embarrassed and not wanting to walk around with his pants undone, he thought of his neighbor across the hall, a married woman who was always willing to lend a hand. He went to her apartment and explained the situation. The woman was happy to help and invited him in. As she was sewing the button back on, they chatted and laughed. The man was starting to relax and forget about his embarrassing situation. But just as the woman was finishing up and leaning forward to cut the thread with her teeth, her husband walked in the door. So on their 50 years wedding anniversary and during the banquet celebrating it, Susan was asked to give her friends a brief account of the benefits of a marriage of such long duration. "Tell us, Susan, just what is it you have learned from all those wonderful years with your husband?" Susan responds, "Well, I've learned that marriage is the best teacher of all. It teaches you loyalty, meekness, forbearance, self-restraint, forgiveness, and a great many other qualities you wouldn't have needed if you'd stayed single."